Hello, everyone. This is Quentin here, and I go by the amateur radio call sign of N0GIY. I also have the GMRS call sign WRJK797. And I wanted to make a presentation today about why I love radio. And right now, I'm mostly obsessed with GMRS radio, but GMRS radio isn't the only thing out there. And I've been interested in radio for a long time. So let's get into several reasons why radio interests me. So my father, his amateur radio call sign is AC0HN, is definitely a founding influence on me why I'm interested in radio. I've also got some family history in radio. I'm intrigued by the hardware and networking aspects of radio. There's also some very interesting software aspects and programming, but that's not quite as much as my background, so I can't really speak to that as much. I also think radio is incredible, obviously, for purposes of communication, which might be the most obvious, but also for emergency preparation. So first, I'll talk about my father, Alpha Charlie Zero, Hotel November. He's had several call signs throughout time, but his current one is AC0HN. He is an extra. He doesn't really talk on radio that much, but he'll answer the phone if I call him, or video chat as well. So I'm really grateful every time he picks up the phone or video chats with me. And obviously, he's an incredibly handsome man. You can see a picture here on the left when he was in the Navy. He served on a destroyer. I'll have to look up the name of the destroyer. I can't really remember it right now. But on the right, there is a picture of him with our cat Oreo. Oreo is no longer alive, so I should say late cat Oreo. He's a very good cat. And my father is, he got me into radio because he had a Yaesu HT. Not too different from this one right here. And he was a part of the local amateur radio club in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And I got to attend one of the meetings and learn a little bit about radio. And unfortunately, at the time, I wasn't quite mentally there enough, to pull away from playing video games to really get into the hobby. But now I'm 26, and I'm really glad to have gotten into it. It's a great way to meet people and stay in contact with people that you already know. So I definitely thank my father for his involvement and getting me interested. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have ever even heard of amateur radio, let alone GMRS. I've also got many family members who have or had novice licenses before they passed away, and they had HF rigs. I never really saw anyone transmitting, but there was always some machine somewhere in the house receiving, and I would listen to the conversations, and it would usually, because it was in rural Minnesota, it would be about the crops, about the weather, about people's days, about people's trucks, and because I was young and couldn't really think of much else besides Pokemon, I didn't really appreciate it to its full extent like I would now. Now I'd like to listen in, even if it's something I'm not interested in, just to expand my boundaries, leave my comfort zone, and get away and enjoy someone else's conversation and company. So yeah, that's another Yesu right there. And I'm not currently into HF myself. It's quite an expensive hobby, but it's definitely something I'd be interested in learning about and using in the future. So there's a lot of potential in this hobby. So yeah, I've been exposed to it by many family members. My call sign, N0GIY, is actually my great-grandfather, Oswald Rohde's call sign. He passed away over a decade ago. I believe it was in 2008. And he was a very inspirational person to me. He lived on a farm in rural Swift County, Minnesota, and he was just an incredibly hard worker. He was extremely handy. He knew how to fix and maintain what seemed like everything, and he was very musical. He played all kinds of different instruments. He was a very religious and kind person. So I want to carry on his call sign. I want to name my child after him. I just want to continue his work ethic and empathy and everything that he represented forward into the future. And as far as hardware goes, oh my goodness, look at that ham shack picture right there. That is not my ham shack, but wow, that is a lot of radios. So the hardware, oh my goodness, there are so many cool things to get into as far as the hardware goes. So obviously there's people with unlimited money that set up crazy amateur radio shacks, but I mean, even for an incredibly small budget, you can get a little dongle for your computer called a software defined receiver, and you can listen to anything that's on the airwaves. You can get mobile units for your car. There are so many different antennas for your base stations, for your mobiles, and even for your HTs. I've got a glow in the dark signal stick on this one, and on this one I've got a tripod and a Slim Jim, which I'll make a future video about in the future. And so many different kinds of antennas. And then of course you've got HTs. Those are handy talkies, which getting into the hobby is kind of weird to get used to because everyone calls them walkie talkies. But once you're in the hobby, they're handy talkies because you hold them in your hand. And there's endless things you can do with Raspberry Pis. And you might already know that, but even in amateur radio, you can use the Raspberry Pi to talk on Echolink, to make an all-star node, and so many things that, as a beginner to the hobby myself, that I still don't know or understand. But, the options are there, the software is out there. You just got to buy yourself a Raspberry Pi and sometimes, the necessary connectors to connect to an HT, and you can build a little box in your house that you can communicate directly from, or that you can transmit to with your handy talkie. So I could talk in here, it would go through the Raspberry Pi over the internet, and then anywhere that I want to send it to. So I could make a node, or I could just buy a node. You can even buy them pre-configured to a certain frequency with your Wi-Fi password already entered in, so you don't even have to know a lot about computers. But you save some money if you do it yourself. And then there's local repeaters. Those are people that spend thousands of dollars, setting up monstrous towers with expensive antennas, expensive feed lines, complicated repeater systems where you transmit on one frequency and then you receive on another frequency, usually with a DCS or a CTCSS code. I might have messed that second one up. And that just stops the repeater from picking up random signals, or from you picking up random signals, because other people might be transmitting. There might be some kind of interference. So yeah, as far as hardware goes, there's just endless fun, endless opportunities, things to do. And from a networking perspective, this is not even a fraction of the number of repeaters and connections that are out there. Obviously, you can link up over the internet and make communication. But what if something happens to the internet? Then you can also rely on RF. Lots of repeaters are linked over RF. You can do radio to radio, radio to repeater to radio, radio to repeater to repeater to radio. There's just so many networking applications you can do with it. And that includes, at least on ham radio and GMRS, voice. And for ham radio only, you can do text, data. You can send your location, your global, have a GPS system that's transmitted over the radio waves. And I find this relevant to my chosen career. I'm getting into network administration. I'm studying for my Cisco certified network administration certification, the Cisco CCNA. And that's all about routing, routers, switches, hubs. And there's a lot in common between amateur radio and networking. It's just that this, I feel like, is more hobby driven. So there's people that have all these skills, have all this knowledge, and then they come and they bring it and they contribute it to the radio community so that other people can enjoy the fruits of their labor, whether it's setting up a repeater, setting up a reflector or making a program that other people can use, and we can all use that to communicate with. That gets into the next point. Communication is taken for granted. If someone's not standing right next to you, it's difficult, to talk to them. So with radio, we can send waves over the air, like walkie-talkies from radio to radio. That's called Simplex, and that's free. It always works. With cell phones and with internet, you have to pay every single month. And trust me, if you miss a payment, they're going to cut you off. You're not going to have access to the internet or to your cell phone. And it's dependent on infrastructure. If they need to maintain it, there could be downtime through no fault of your own, through no natural disaster. Just they had to take it down and fix it up. So you might not even have access to internet or cell phones in your area. You might be out in the country. You might be in a national park. You might just be out and on the go. And you might not want to have an internet plan, or a mobile hotspot and all of that. It's with a radio, Simplex radio to radio is always works. It's always free unless there's some kind of massive jamming going on, which would be extremely unusual and highly illegal. Most repeaters are free to use unless it's part of some club that requires membership, in which case they're usually pretty affordable. It's not going to be like a monthly payment where they're going to cut you off the second you stop paying. And with HF, you can even bounce signals off of the ionosphere and communicate across the earth with Morse code or other methods of communication. So it's very versatile and incredible what you can do with it. But what if there's an emergency? Woo, 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 woo! Hurricane, tornado, power outage, flood, tsunami, blizzard, riot, question mark. Any crazy murder hornets, killer bees. Who knows what could happen? With the internet and cell phones, you're sharing those connections. So you might have one fiber optic cable going into your neighborhood, and or one cell phone tower that covers your whole neighborhood, provided that you have connection in the first place. Those systems could get overwhelmed. You could have a fire, and everyone's trying to make a phone call all at the same time, and you're going to have a lot of difficulty getting through with that cell phone or with that internet connection, because it's used to a certain level of usage. It's easy to overwhelm those systems. A car could crash into a utility pole and take your internet or your phone line out for hours, days, weeks. If it's a hurricane, it could take out all the power and internet for a large swath of territory, and you might be waiting a while to get your utilities restored. So it's important to have multiple methods of communication. You want to stay connected to your friends, family, community, and in some cases, if you're trapped in your house during a hurricane or a flood, they might be monitoring those GMRS channels. They might be monitoring other frequencies. You want to be able to communicate with them and not be trapped and waiting desperately for help. So it's important to have these systems in an emergency. And this is just one of my first videos here making about radio. I thought I would start, with an introduction, which I made previously, and now, why I'm interested in radio, why you might be interested in radio. And currently, I'm very active in the local GMRS chapters. So if you're interested in GMRS, even if you don't use GMRS, please consider joining at mygmrs.com. You, from there, can find all the resources to local repeaters near you, or texasgmrs.net. And that's the local one. I'm a paying member, but there's free access to the repeaters. You just put in your call sign and you can start communicating. And I would love to talk to you on there. So thank you again for watching my video. This is Quentin in Houston, ham radio, N0GIY, GMRS, WRJK797. Thanks again, and 73. Best regards. Have a great day.